The most awkward thing about these live things is I never know when it starts. So it's always like, are we live? And still we do not know. Okay. Yes. Oh, awkward silence is over. All right, we're live. Okay. So, well, I mean, we can get into questions. I just want to say, you know, like hopefully you can see, you know, many of you were at the meetups that we had. There's not a lot of Mumbai guys here, but we were in Mumbai, Delhi. We met up with a couple of people in Bangalore. We've been working on this for a while, and I was a little disappointed when we saw the leaks earlier in the week because, you know, like if you look at the response, people just didn't understand why. They were like, oh, polycarbonate sucks. But now you see why, right? Like the end result is pretty amazing. And I think we kind of sort of ticked off all the right boxes. And it makes sense, right? Like if you put a case on it, how many people here have a case on their phone? Yeah, I mean, is there anybody can anybody who doesn't have a case raise their hand? Okay, it's like 5 people, okay. 7, okay. So that's the logic, right? If you put a case on your phone anyway, it doesn't make sense. It's like a waste. And then if you drop your phone, it's still fragile inside the case. So that's why Mancho talked a lot about, you know, some of the cool skins and cases that we made. That was a result of your feedback. Some of you said, like, you know what? I use a case, but I still want something cool. And so we wanted to make, number one is cool cases, and then we made that like kick-ass Kevlar version. So yeah, hopefully now that you've seen kind of the finished result, I mean like 20,999 for what you get is just nuts. All 3 of these are under 30K. It's just crazy. So hopefully everyone enjoys it. All right. Maybe we can start with questions. I don't think there's, yeah. Hitesh. I can just repeat the question, I think, right? Okay.
Yeah, Ajay. Go Poco, first of all.
Thank you.
Yeah, go Poco.
And, you know, everything is in it. There's just one thing that I'm nitpicking.
Can I guess?
The IR blaster?
I would have guessed. Yeah, so there's, so again, we started with 845, 4000 mAh. One of the early, and liquid cooling, one of the early things we wanted was 2+1. There just wasn't space for it, so we went with the hybrid SIM. We wanted the IR blaster as well, but again, it was a thing where there wasn't space. It's not like, it's not a large component actually, but every component kind of impacts things like RF performance, for example, and it just wasn't possible. I really, really wanted to do it, but you know, we have things like the headphone jack, for example. So yeah, it just wasn't possible for this thing. But it is kind of a, oh, sorry. His question, which I didn't repeat, is, this is Hitesh. His question was about the IR blaster. So yeah, I would have loved to do it, but it just wasn't possible.
My question is, what's the aperture of the back camera?
Yeah, so the question is, what is the aperture of the back camera? We didn't put it up there? Okay, yeah, it's 1.9. It's 1.8 on the Mix 2S and the Mi 8. So it's the same sensor as the Mix 2S and the Mi 8. The camera module on the rear is a little bit different. So it's 1.9, the f-stop, and it's also a 6-piece lens. Oh, I didn't mention this, man. I always forget stuff. The secondary sensor is just for depth. It's 12 megapixels. You have EIS on the front and the back, which I assume will be a question somewhere later on. The front camera module is just the Mi 8 camera module. And so the advantage of this is that basically, you know, I mentioned we've gotten camera questions like for the last year and a half, and I mentioned that the first thing we did was kind of try to standardize hardware, and then we can build on software, you know, from previous devices. So that saved us a lot of time here. We were able to, you know, while we had to do some different tuning for the aperture and some of the other module changes, it saves us a ton of time. Usually what happens is you get the first device, like the first device is called a P1 typically, and it's just like, basically there's no software tuning at all, and usually the camera, like half the time doesn't even work. This time the camera immediately started with the Mi 8. In fact, the watermark used to say shot on the Mi 8. and it was like amazing for a P1. And then we spent another like 4 or 5, 6 months tuning it. So I think that's kind of the advantage there. Sorry, it's a long answer to your question, but I forgot about some stuff.
Which Gorilla Glass? Sorry, Gorilla Glass.
Gorilla Glass. Okay, the question is which Gorilla Glass? So it's Gorilla Glass 3. Actually, somebody, Geeky Runjit told me that he prefers 3 to 5 because he said it doesn't scratch as much. But it's Gorilla Glass 3. I think we'll get a question later on for availability. And, you know, like when we make the product, there's a lot of things that go into it. Is like, what's the product we want to make? What's the pricing we're trying to hit, which as you can see is just like completely nuts. And then making sure that we have enough available or as much as possible. And so all of these things impact, you know, things like what type of glass we use, things like the memory configurations. So yeah, it's Gorilla Glass 3 on it.
Hi.
Oh.
So, can it record 4K videos and 60 FPS?
Ooh, it's 4K it's the same as Mi 8, I believe. It's 4K and 30 FPS. I can double check. You can check it outside in the zone. I can't remember. Sorry.
And same thing in the slow-mo. So how much FPS does it support?
I'm sorry, I can't remember. We can check. Yeah. Oh, sorry. The question was about. Well, maybe I won't repeat the question because I didn't know the answer. But the question was about what's the video recording, both in slow mo and resolution. We'll look it up and give it to you. It's something that we can sort of improve upon if there's a lot of feedback. Hopefully, you can see that we actually did listen to a lot of the feedback here. It does support Camera 2 API, so have at it. Which was yeah. There's applause, light applause, but applause. So yeah, if it's something you really want, let us know.
Hi.
Can you raise your hand? Sorry, I can't see you. Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's a good question. So to repeat the question, because it's kind of a new interface, MIUI for Poco. The question is, what happens when you switch from another MIUI device like Redmi Note to the Poco F1? Like, what happens to all your settings? Does it have Mi Cloud, all of that stuff? Is that correct?
Yeah, right.
Okay. So actually, under the hood, it is MIUI. So it's MIUI with a launcher. So it's similar, like if you install a third, we've done optimizations in terms of speed and stuff like that. But Mi Cloud, all those things that you like about MIUI, you know, backing up your call log, your SMS, all that stuff is just done by default. In fact, if you don't like the app drawer, when you set up the phone, you don't have to use it. So it's kind of like in setup, you can decide if you want the Poco launcher or you can just use the regular MIUI launcher. So yeah, under the hood, it's a MIUI phone, but so I didn't mention it necessarily on stage, but this is a global device. We're launching it here first in India. We actually don't really plan on launching this in China. And so the focus in terms of software was sort of include the stuff that people, you know, want from stock Android, but sort of do what you want, which is make it so that when you upgrade from another MIUI device, it just kind of works. So the launcher makes it feel similar if you'd like. MIUI 10 in particular makes, I'm sure many of you have used the MIUI 10 beta. The notification shade is basically the same as Android P in terms of appearance and functionality. But under the hood, it is MIUI. So all that stuff that you want just kind of works. Is the 8 GB version on in the first sale? Yeah. Okay. We'll post on social media about what variants are available, but there is some 8 GB in the first sale. Kevlar will be within a. Sorry, I need to repeat the question. I apologize for everybody in the live stream. The question was, is the 8 GB version available in the first sale? The answer is yes. Here, you can. Okay.
Yeah, the 8 GB version will be available for the first sale, but the Kevlar version, the Kevlar version will not be available for the first sale. Approximately, we should have it in about a month and a half time, the armored edition. The accessories of, there were 3 accessories which we have. Yeah, the skins will probably be available in the first 15 days of September. The cases will be available soon, which will probably be in the first sale itself.
Yeah, the question was about accessories as well. So yeah, I mean, he gave the answer. Also, that soft case is included in the box. You guys can check out the soft cases, different colors depending on which version you buy.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Poco supported quick charger 3.0. So is the timing of full charge?
Yes, so I mean, actually, quick charge is another reason why I'm not a big fan of it. It doesn't change the overall charging time that much. I believe it is about 2 hours and 15 minutes, 0 to 4,000. But quick charge, what it really helps on is 0 to 20. And it's important to note that that is different from like any other 20%. So like 0 to 20 is not the same as 20 to 40. So 0 to 20 charging speed is pretty fast, but if you look at the overall charging time, it's actually not that different. Also, we didn't mention this necessarily, but it technically supports Quick Charge 4. I'm just not aware of anywhere you can actually buy one of those chargers, and in that case, the charging time is almost exactly the same. So we don't want to confuse people, so it includes the Quick Charge 3.0 charger in the box, but technically supports for 4.0 plus. Is there somewhere where you can buy those chargers? I'm not really even sure.
We actually tried.
Yeah, okay. I think you have to buy a phone which ships with it to get it. Anyway, sorry, next question.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, the name Poco is quite peculiar, and the first time I heard it, I was quite fascinated by the name. So, is there any story behind the name that you guys would like to share with us?
Sure, okay. Alvin, I think this is you, man. So the question, just to repeat, is what's the story, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is what's the story, you thought the Poco name was interesting, and what's the story behind it? Is there anything we want to share on it? Is that correct? Okay.
Awesome. So I love pronouncing Poco, and if you've been following Sir Jay Mani's Twitter, he had a Poco 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 challenge. And if you say it fast and clear enough, you have a chance of winning a Poco F1. The story behind Poco is this. When we want to build a new brand, having a memorable name, easy to pronounce, good to spell is very, very important. Now, Poco actually means a little in Spanish. So we actually believe that as a small outfit within Xiaomi, all great things start small. But we should not stop dreaming big. We believe that small forces, when being very focused, could change the world. And therefore, Poco makes a lot of sense to us. Again, I hope Poco is easy to remember, easy to spell, and of course the logo, we spent a lot of effort designing it. So look forward to seeing more Poco Poco challenges very soon on Twitter.
I just want to add 2 things to that. The first is, please make sure that nobody pronounces it P-O-C-O. I'll just go crazy if we do another M-I. It's one of the things we're talking about with pronunciation. The second thing is, and I've been involved in a couple of rebranding things. Like, for example, I was at Google when we had Android Market and we changed it to Google Play. And I mean, there was a lot of arguments internally. There was a lot of skepticism over time. I don't think that many people even remember it now. Like, people used to say you can't play a book. It doesn't make sense. But now, play is just play, right? Over time, things become stuff that you understand. I saw a really funny comment. I can't remember if it was on Reddit, but it was discussing the Poco name, and this guy said something that blew my mind, which is that Donkey Kong isn't a donkey. It never occurred. He's like a gorilla. He's not a donkey. But I have accepted that name for years. It's just never occurred to me. So I think brands develop over time.
In fact, there was a very interesting comment in one of our social media posts as well. One of our Poco fans actually mentioned Poco means little in Spanish, and it's kind of paying homage to Xiaomi, little rice or small rice. That was a very interesting comment. It actually, somewhere in our minds as well, we were actually doing that.
Hello. Hello, Jay. Congratulations for bringing Poco. When OnePlus was launched, it was launched with a tagline that it is a flagship killer. And today we will just hear something which is going to kill the OnePlus and devices in that price range. So congratulations from all of us.
Thank you.
My question is, OnePlus is different device. They have different teams. Which team only works on OnePlus updates, timely updates, and all things. So what can we expect from the Poco team? Will Poco team bring one device a year? Do they have different teams which will work only on Poco? Or will Xiaomi developer team work on other devices as well as on Poco?
Okay. Let me summarize. It's a little awkward for me to repeat, like, congratulations. So I'm going to, the beginning of it was saying congratulations. Thanks a lot. We appreciate it. So your question is, what is the Poco team? Is it a separate team? How does that impact things like the software updates? What are our plans for future roadmap? Anything else? Is that correct? Okay. Actually, and this is another thing that was really helpful for us, is actually the Poco team. Alvin mentioned it in the beginning, but we have a different product marketing and sales team. And actually, internally, even in R&D, we do a lot of the R&D out of a completely separate office in Shenzhen. That includes mechanical design, kind of the BSP, which is the base layer stuff, which impacts things like OS updates. We take advantage of Xiaomi in software for things like MIUI. So the base level of MIUI, we just take advantage of MIUI. And then we have a separate Poco software team that works on the launcher and then optimizing MIUI for Poco. And then I think actually most importantly is the camera. We actually just started a new camera division. In fact, the old head of product, our boss in product, the old head of product became a VP and the new head of camera. So like every team that works on camera now reports to this one guy. So for camera, we're using Xiaomi's sort of camera team. You asked a bunch of stuff about comparisons and like how OnePlus was in the beginning. And I think, if you look at, obviously, sort of they have changed over time. Devices have changed over time. I think what is a flagship now is very different from what it is then. I kind of avoided the flagship killer thing. I think this is just like, it's kind of like flagships don't make sense to me. It's like a kind of a different, it has some flagship stuff, but it's kind of different. But I do think, the most interesting phones in the past couple of years are phones that were started by teams like us. Things like, like the Essential phone, Andy's phone, that Nextbit, Robin was pretty cool. But if you look at kind of where they struggled, that's where we hoped to sort of leverage Xiaomi. Like for a new team, it's difficult to build a good camera. It's just really hard for like a small team to build a good camera because you don't get access to the best components, and software tuning is like a massive effort. And then you don't get access to supply chain. So we get, access to better parts, better prices. So basically we try to do the best of both worlds. Because we are actually kind of a separate team, we could do a bunch of stuff that, I think maybe is a little different. But because we're a part of Xiaomi, we also take advantage of a lot of the infrastructure, not just in product, but also things like after sales, manufacturing in India. Yeah, again, long answer, but does that answer your question? Mostly? Oh, you asked about updates in particular, right? Okay, yeah, sorry. So the BSP team, which does the underlying update, that's a separate team. So it's one of the targets is to be really, really quick. It'll be one of the fastest phones. Unfortunately, because of the timing, we had to get a factory build out, so it had to launch on O. Like we couldn't get the P software ready in time for the factory launch. So basically, the first build is on 8.1. We have the next major update is MIUI 10, and we're reserving some development time for any bug fixes or anything that we find once the device gets to market. And the next major update after that will be the Android P update. So yes, there is a separate team, and they are focused on updates, including security, underlying OS, stuff like that.
And I'll just echo Jay's comments. Poco is going to be as responsive as Xiaomi in terms of listening to customer feedback, interacting with you in the community. So if you want faster updates, tell us, and we'll definitely respond. One more thing that I think for the power users here that is very, very relevant. On the day of first sale, we're going to make the MIUI 10 beta available right away. So you can try the latest and greatest, super smooth experience and fast and fluid. So I hope you guys like it.
How many of you tried MIUI 10? Okay, most people. Yeah, okay. Actually, I think the MIUI 10 build is already really stable and good. That's what I'm running on my phone. So, yeah.
I want to ask a question that whether Poco is just a sub-brand or another series by Xiaomi. Like Poco is giving the same services like Xiaomi, or is it only Xiaomi?
Okay, so the question is it kind of a sub-brand or a new series, right? Okay, so again, like I think the goal for us was to take advantage of being able to do the best of both of those things. And I can kind of explain how it's a little bit different from how some other folks do it. We are different in that like this product it's not like a rebranded phone, right? This is like a completely unique phone. You won't see this phone anywhere in Xiaomi's lineup. And that's because the reason why we started Poco in the beginning was a product problem. There are marketing and sales. There are different teams that are doing it, that's the difference between a sub-brand and a completely different brand, because we have a different marketing and sales approach. But the core thing is the product is completely different, and that is why we started a new brand. It's difficult to do that as like a quote-unquote sub-brand. And I do think one of the questions which I forgot to ask about is like kind of what we're planning on in the future. If this is successful, being a separate brand gives us a lot more flexibility with what we want to do. Do we want to make ecosystem products? Do we want to make different phones? It gives us a lot more flexibility. And then it's important that people, especially everybody here, knows that it's part of Xiaomi for service, because the way we can make this phone successful is when somebody asks you, hey, I have a Redmi Note 3, I have a Redmi Note 5 Pro, like I want to buy a new phone, I love this phone, what should I buy? Like, hopefully your instant response is, okay, get the Poco F1, it just kicks ass. And then they'll be like, what is Poco? And you can say, hey, Xiaomi? It's like the same company, you can get, same quality, same service, same all that stuff. So it's kind of trying to take advantage of all of those things. Yeah, service center is the same service infrastructure, which is really important for us, right? Which again is different from some of other brands do. Like they have like kind of not that many service centers. So because Xiaomi has such massive scale, with Poco, we're able to just use all that scale and give you really good service from day one.
Thank you, David. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
If I may just add one question, because I love talking about branding. Poco is a sub-brand by Xiaomi, which means that Poco focuses more on the front end of the whole product design phase, right? Product, marketing, and sales. The beautiful thing is that Xiaomi, being the #1 Indian smartphone brand, now has a very established back-end infrastructure. If you start things out as a new independent brand, it's very, very difficult. Top-end suppliers would not talk to you, right? Because you're just starting out. Why would they believe you, right? If you want service centers, it takes time to get to the Xiaomi service centers coverage, more than 1,000 service centers for you to easily access, right? The other good thing about sub-brand instead of a new series is about positioning. So what you see today is that Xiaomi embodies one camp of product philosophy, and Poco embodies another. Xiaomi Mi series, Redmi series we are actually serving tens of millions of users every day. If you look at global DAU numbers on MIUI, right, more than 190 million users, which means that we're building products that are catered for the masses, right? Those who want things to just work is good enough. Everything has to be good. That's what Xiaomi's product philosophy is. It's the jack of all trades, the all-rounders. What Poco is trying to say is that, look, there's another group of power users like yourself, right? You guys actually want something extreme. You guys want something that is ultimate. And Poco, by focusing on just that, gives you a completely different experience, which is why we want it to be a new sub-brand. If you are a motorbike fan, this analogy, I think, makes the whole concept very clear. If you love motorbikes, you know that there are these cruiser bikes that are just great with handling, design, comfort, good speed, right? Decent price, right? That's kind of the all-rounder jack of all trades concept. But for the thrill seekers, for the speed lovers, we have the super bikes. It's not particularly comfortable to sit on it, right? But if you like speed, it's designed specific for it. It's streamlined. The gravity, the center of gravity is very low, right? That's exactly what Poco is trying to do for the power users, for those who love performance.
Repeat the question first, by the way.
Huh?
Repeat the question first.
Yeah. So the question is, because Poco is a sub-brand of Xiaomi, will we have a separate community for Poco? That's the question, right? So yeah, we will have a separate community for Poco. This is because, as Alvin and Jay have been mentioning, Poco will stand for marketing, sales, and all the front-end operations. And Poco community is very, very critical for the success of Poco. We will be launching the Poco community soon. In fact, we are actually leveraging, for now, the Me community to provide updates on the Poco community. So stay tuned for that.
Oops, sorry. We got a couple of minutes left, I think, about 3 or 4 minutes left. Any other questions? Hey.
No, this is going to be, so the question is, will Poco F1 be available at Mi Homes? No, it will not be available at Mi Homes. Poco F1 is going to be an online exclusive product available at mi.com and Flipkart. Okay.
Questions? Come on.
I am back. So the second question is, are there other devices you guys are planning under the Poco brand? Like will there be devices in other price ranges? Like this with the Poco F1, you guys have truly nailed the pricing and it is extremely aggressive. It can't get more aggressive than this. And so are you guys planning on different devices and different price segments?
So the question is, are you planning on other devices? Well, first of all, I mean, we haven't even started selling this, so we hope it's really successful. Let's see how it goes. Obviously we have some stuff in mind, but for now, we're just really focused on this device. I think we'll probably be in touch at some point where we can sort of validate some of the things we're talking about or thinking about. But definitely our first goal is to really make this thing kind of a success. And, all of you here are going to help us, right? Like we are not, marketing is going to be different. And one of the ways we sort of make the price so aggressive is that we're trying to, we won't be as big as Xiaomi goes in terms of marketing. So one thing I actually really hope, because are there any questions? Because we can take one more question, I guess, yeah. So the question is about like when you run out of battery, how much time does it take to get battery for an entire day? That's a bit hard to say. It's like kind of subjective. It depends on what you're doing. Like if you go to, you mean if you go to completely to zero? It's a bit subjective. I mean, we don't have like a specific number, really. So what I mean, again, I mentioned this in the keynote, which is I actually don't really care about quick charge in this device because, like, unlike some of those other devices, you really generally don't need to charge it during the day. Like, I have not had a situation where I need to charge it during the day. So we didn't really spend much time thinking about, like, oh, you know, like these different situations where, I mean, the phone you're talking about runs out of battery. It cannot last through the whole day, and that's why they need to like market this like super fast charging thing. We kind of did it because you told us you wanted quick charge. Like, I don't think it's necessary, but like we have quick charge 3.0. It depends on what your usage is. And just keep in mind that the battery is bigger. So if you're looking from 0 to 20, it's 0 to 20% of a bigger battery, so it'll take longer than another device. But yeah, we didn't really think too much about it. We just did it because you guys told us you wanted it. So actually, yeah. I disagreed with it.
Again, I think Jay nailed it on the spot. I've been using the device myself for the past 2 months. And the beautiful thing about this is that not only does it have 4,000 milliamp battery and QC 3.0, the MIUI for Poco actually undergone more than 20 plus deep system optimizations. I'm definitely a power user on smartphones, and of course, in the past 2 months, we've been preparing the launch of this product and brand, watching a lot of videos on the go, taking a look at a lot of these intensive, high-resolution images, always on the chat, right? I don't know if you guys know this app, WeChat, which is very, very popular, doing video calls on it, right? I think Jay mentioned in the launch event, which really solves a pain point of mine, which is it reduced my battery anxiety. These days, with Poco F1, I don't need to bring a power bank outside my home. Like, sometimes, for guys, we don't have handbags, right? So, like, putting this power bank in your pocket. And
especially with those jeans.
Exactly. Tight jeans as well, right? It's not the best. It's not the best user experience. So I would say that, first of all, for most people, you don't need to worry about the battery. When it comes to charging, personal anecdotal story, right? Once I go to 0 or close to 0 and I feel like, it's 10 p.m., I might still have a call at night, right? I just plug it quickly. Easily, within 30 minutes, I get to a pretty healthy, 25, 30% battery life, which then, again, powers you for a good few hours easily, right? But that is rare, so.
You guys, okay, so I mean, because we're running out of time, I mean, the last thing I want to say is you all will, our goal here, or my goal was kind of to make this phone that people who know what's in it can be proud of it. Like, you should feel good about, like back in the day when you bought a Redmi 1S and someone was like, what is this phone? And you were like, dude, like, you should buy this phone. Like, you don't know what it is, but you should buy. It kicks ass. We really wanted to make something that you should feel proud of. You can, like, hopefully you want to buy the phone, you can do that and test it. But I think if this is going to be successful, if you want to see more devices, we hope we made something that you're proud of and that you can share with your friends and family. You can tell them, like, hey, I mean, it even has this like 4G plus thing. You get, you have bad VoLTE calls in your house. Like, you should understand all the stuff that's in it and feel like really good about it. You should be able to explain, like, hey, don't waste money on like this phone that doesn't make any sense, right? And so that's kind of our goal, which I hope once you get a chance to play with the device, you can let us know if we did it. Unfortunately, we got to wrap up. So I think there's a zone outside where you can check out all the devices. I know there's another comment over here. Just like hit me up on Twitter or something, and we can try to answer all the questions that you guys have. All right. Thank you. Really appreciate it. I turned off my photo.